Who is Curzon Dax? Star Trek DS9 Legacy Trill character explained. In Star Trek Deep Space Nine, one of the most fascinating legacies belongs to a character we never actually see alive on screen, Curzon Dax. His shadow looms over the series from its earliest episodes, shaping the relationships, politics, and even moral compass of the characters who knew him. Through the memories and experiences carried by his successor, Jadzia Dax, and the stories told by those who served with him, Curzon's presence is felt like that of an old friend, charming, flawed, and larger than life. But who exactly was Curzon Dax, and why does his legacy matter so much to Star Trek canon? The symbiote at the center of it all. To understand Curzon, you first need to understand the Dax part of his name. The Trill species in Star Trek consists of two distinct forms, the humanoid hosts and the worm-like symbionts they carry inside their bodies. A joined Trill's life is essentially a blend of the host's personality and the symbiont's long history of memories from previous hosts. This creates a continuous thread of identity, meaning that when Curzon Dax died, the Dax symbiont lived on, first inside Jadzia Dax and later Ezri Dax. By the time Curzon was joined with the Dax symbiont, it had already lived multiple lifetimes. But it was Curzon's particular combination of ambition, charisma, and impulsiveness that left one of the most indelible marks on the Dax legacy. His was a life of diplomacy, hedonism, and occasional controversy, making him one of the most colorful figures in Starfleet history. Curzon the Diplomat and the Klingon Connection. One of Curzon's most important contributions to Federation history was his role as a diplomat during the tense years between the Klingon Empire and the United Federation of Planets. He served as a Federation ambassador to the Klingons, earning the respect of a culture that values honor, directness, and courage. It wasn't easy. Klingons tend to distrust those who hide behind protocol or diplomacy, but Curzon won them over by embracing their traditions, sometimes too enthusiastically. He participated in Klingon drinking rituals, engaged in friendly duels, and forged deep personal friendships with Klingon warriors. This earned him the nickname, the Klingon-Hearted, among some in the Empire. His most famous diplomatic achievement came during the negotiations that led to the Khitomer Accords, the landmark treaty that ended decades of hostility between the Klingons and the Federation. Though Chancellor Gorkin and Captain Spock are often credited with the Accords, Curzon's behind-the-scenes influence helped smooth tensions and ensure the peace held. It's telling that decades later, Klingons like General Martok still honored Curzon's memory. When Martok met Jadzia Dax, he treated her not just as a fellow Starfleet officer, but as an old comrade in arms. Sisko's mentor and friend, Curzon Dax also played a pivotal role in shaping the life of Deep Space Nine central character, Benjamin Sisko. Long before the events of the series, Curzon served as a mentor to the young Sisko when he was a Starfleet ensign. Sisko affectionately called him Old Man, a nickname that carried over to Jadzia Dax when the Dax symbiont was transferred to her. Sisko's stories about Curzon paint him as both inspiring and infuriating. He could be a brilliant strategist one moment and an unreliable party-goer the next. He sometimes bent Starfleet regulations to the breaking point, but always in the service of what he thought was right. Sisko learned from him not only about diplomacy and command, but also about life beyond the rulebook. Their friendship went beyond the typical mentor-student dynamic. Curzon introduced Sisko to Klingon culture, helped him navigate Starfleet politics, and even brought him into situations where the young officer probably got more than he bargained for. When Sisko meets Jadzia for the first time in Emissary, it's this deep, personal connection to Curzon that makes their reunion so emotionally charged. The flawed but fascinating Curzon. Curzon's reputation wasn't spotless, far from it. He had a penchant for gambling, drinking, and romantic entanglements that sometimes complicated his professional duties. These traits, while endearing to some, also earned him a reputation as a bit of a scoundrel. One of the more revealing episodes about Curzon's flaws comes in Deep Space Nine Season 3's Facets, where Jadzia undergoes the Giantara, a Trill ritual that allows her to interact with the personalities of Dax's past hosts. When Curzon's personality is brought to the surface, it becomes clear he harbored feelings for Jadzia when she was a young initiate. This led him to wash her out of the Trill joining program, a decision rooted more in personal conflict than professional assessment. The fact that Jadzia later overcame this and became joined with Dax anyway adds a layer of poetic irony to their shared existence. Curzon could also be stubborn, occasionally letting personal pride override political pragmatism. But it was this same unwillingness to compromise his values that often earned him respect, even from his adversaries. A lasting influence on Jadzia Dax. For Jadzia, inheriting the Dax symbiote meant inheriting all of Curzon's memories, instincts, and relationships. This created a fascinating dynamic in Deep Space Nine. She was her own person, but also the continuation of someone with an entirely different personality, gender, and life experience. This duality often played out in her interactions with Klingons, who respected her as if she were still Curzon, and with Sisko, who could slip into the easy camaraderie he'd had with Old Man without missing a beat. It also gave Jadzia a unique advantage as a Starfleet science officer and diplomat. She could draw on Curzon's wealth of experience in negotiation, cross-cultural understanding, and tactical thinking. At the same time, Jadzia was determined to make her own mark. She didn't want to live in Curzon's shadow, and throughout Deep Space Nine, we see her actively choosing paths that reflected her own identity rather than just following Curzon's example. Curzon's posthumous appearances. Even though Curzon died before the events of Deep Space Nine, the series found clever ways to bring him into the story. In addition to Facets, where René Auberjonois Odo temporarily channels Curzon's personality, we hear numerous anecdotes from characters who knew him. Each of these stories fleshes out a different side of the man: the fearless negotiator, the unrepentant partier, the wily chess player in political affairs. These glimpses help the audience understand why so many characters in the show feel such a deep sense of loss over his passing, and why his influence still shapes events years after his death. The legacy of Curzon Dax in Star Trek lore. Curzon Dax remains one of Star Trek's most intriguing, absent characters. He's a reminder of the layered storytelling possibilities that come with the Trill, a species that allows past lives to remain active participants in the present through memory and personality. In a broader sense, Curzon's legacy highlights a recurring Star Trek theme: the blending of cultures and the personal connections that transcend time. His friendships with Klingons bridged a historical divide. His mentorship of Sisko influenced the leadership of Deep Space Nine during one of the most turbulent periods in Federation history. His flaws made him human, even if he was Trill, and his passions gave him a vitality that made his stories worth telling. Why Curzon still resonates. There's a certain charm in the way Deep Space Nine builds up Curzon Dax. We never see him in his prime, yet he feels fully Ray,